everyone, I hope you've had a good week so far. So we are going to be focusing on a squirrel, and I thought this was a lovely little picture of him to look at, sort of that idea of a winter animal, something that maybe you could put on a card, something that you could send out as a Christmas present even. So I'm just going to focus predominantly on the squirrel. You could at a later date, once you have finished that, use some white gouache to add in extra bits of detail at the end of when you finish drawing it. So the first thing to do is to make sure that we simplify the squirrel shape. So I want it to be a little bit bigger than what he currently is. So you've got this kind of oval shape here for the head. So I'm going to start off by, I might even turn my paper actually, having said that, portrait, just to give myself a little bit more space for him. Kind of got this kind of shape, and then his body is in kind of two different parts. So you've got the first muscle where his arms is coming down, and then you've got his legs muscles sort of crouching here. So he's looking like a snowman at the moment. But what we can do with that is, now we've got those basic shapes, we can actually then work from that and actually put in this sort of back end that we can see, which is quite high actually for the squirrel. I thought it was quite nice to have a red squirrel as well, because obviously they were originally native to England, and they have been seen back in the wild in Scotland. So just working that, and then obviously you've got these lovely little triangular kind of ears with their little long sort of feathery wisps. So again, looking at marker points here, so there's not a very big gap between that bit and this bit, so just making sure that you're doing something similar. And then you can see here, so his arm, right at the bottom of his arm, I mean, I might just bring that up a little bit here. So these shapes are here just to kind of guide you. Doesn't mean that you have to keep them exactly in that space. And his little hands. He's probably got a little nut there, hasn't he, or something? Actually, I'm just looking and thinking it's quite tricky to see what he's doing with his hands there. This is where I could do with my glasses. I think it's kind of almost this kind of effect. And also this isn't, this is part of the big sort of muscle of his arm, sort of coming out from there. So it's very wide. That's important. That's why that was also looking odd, because he hasn't got a very thin little narrow bit coming out. It's very wide. There's a little suggestion of some of that behind there. And you can kind of see his little claws holding something like that. And then you can see again, so just look, see where this is happening. So this line here on there is where that's sort of the front of his thigh. And again, there's not very much space coming through here. So you want that almost to be touching. And then, we can work out where the feet should be coming. So all these little things make the difference with a successful drawing. Almost like that kind of effect. Not quite. It looks like a duck foot there, doesn't it? So let's just get this in a bit more perspective. A lot of this will come with shading. That's a bit better. And then his tummy, so he's got his white tummy. So if we just rub out these lines. Like so. And his little white tummy. So this is, you know, when we come to actually adding the lovely coppery tones on the squirrel, that's where this is going to look fantastic, because you're going to get this great contrast between his tummy and so on. And then just working on that little nose. Mouth. And again, part of this we will do with this shading, but you can see the jawline sort of coming up, and actually the ear is starting from there, and the back of the head is coming in there. So yeah, just keep looking and seeing where things are going, and then use the other parts of the body to help. Actually, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that the whole head and neck need to come down a little bit. And let's just see, look, that nose needs to come out roughly there. The hardest part of any drawing is getting everything lined up in the right place. I'm just give it a little bit. Still doesn't look quite right, so I'm thinking it needs to be just a little bit bigger. They have got very small heads, haven't they? Let's just try.
I think that's what I'm going to try and do, is work from this edge here up. That's a bit better. Hopefully, though, by you guys seeing just me doing this, this doesn't take, it's not like a first step, and that's, you know, again, why it's important to kind of see these demonstrations and work this way, because you can see that it actually takes a while, and a lot of the stuff, you know, nowadays especially, you know, they sort of show you the end outcome, but all the process really sped up, so you can't actually get a grasp of all the adjustments. His eye sort of like this kind of shape with sort of a circular shape around him. Slightly wider. That's better. Makes me think of Squirrel Nutkin from Beatrix Potter books. Okay, so I'm quite happy now with that shape. So what we're going to do is, I've got my little selection of, well, I say these are my children's felt tip pens, which were mine, and they have taken ownership of. It does mean that some of them tend to either be, can be quite well used, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure, though, yours will all be in pristine condition. So what I like to do is I like to get all the colours that I can see that are in the picture, and then use that as part of my colours into my image. So obviously I've got different variations of orange, I've got a bit of yellow here and a bit of red. So I've got a test piece of paper here as well, and what I like to do on that is just see what the colour looks like before I go ahead and put it on. Probably want a bit of brown as well, just see how it's coming out. And these ones are quite nice and fresh, which makes a change. I've got a brown. That's quite a dark brown. Let's see if I've got a lighter brown. Special pens. Right, well, we can use that with these colouring pencils to help us with that. So the idea is that you use the felt tip pen first to make your marks, and just to kind of give you a bit more of a defined edge. You can then overlap with some colouring pencils. Now you can use any colouring pencils. Obviously, certain branded ones are better. These ones are Crayola, and funnily enough, I've had these for a very long time, and now my boys, I think I've had these since I was at school, and just kept them, you know, in a box somewhere, and uncovered them. But they're Crayola ones, and actually they are really good. They've got good quality to them, and you'll know that because sometimes when you're trying to blend with certain colouring pencils, if they're quite cheap,
they won't give you that easy and nice mix. It will be much harder to get that effect. So that's something as well that you need to consider. The other thing is also to make sure that your pencils are really nice and sharp too, because as part of this process, we want to be able to add lots of detail and texture. So I'm just going to get some of these a little bit sharper. Because as I said, the kids have had access to these. I need to make sure everything's got a lock on it, I think. So you can see there I've got a selection of different colours. I could do with a black as well. I've got a black there. So what we're going to end up doing is starting with our felt tip pens first, and then we're going to layer over the top with the pencil crayons. The reason you can't do pencil crayons first and then felt tip pen is because these are they won't go over the like wax element of the crayons, and it'd be much harder. So just remind yourself what the colours are. Now, bearing in mind that there's obviously some lighter colours, there's some much deeper and darker colours. So for example, around here I can see it's really dark. I'm just going to do these little edges with little dashes. It's quite similar for those of you that have been doing these sessions now with me to when we did our felt tip pen version of the blue tip, which was really lovely to see because quite a lot of you suddenly were like, oh, I could actually use felt tip pens in a different way from what you would think. Most people think using felt tip pens has to be that kind of awkward colouring in, I guess, that quite a lot of children do when they're first learning, which is kind of very big block colours, and not really thinking about the little bits of detail or how refined that these pens can actually be. So I'm noticing the direction of the little hairs, and I'm trying to keep that going. And notice I'm just keeping it to one edge where it's dark at the moment, because this will lend itself to that detail when we start to go over with the colouring pencils. And what I like about it is it's almost like this blending of the two different materials comes together. I'm not going to go too hard there. Okay, so that's the first bit just done. Then we can add I'm going to add a bit of brown into some of this, especially where it's really dark. So again, just trying to keep with that suggestion of the hairs in that direction. slightly darker on here, so just a couple. And notice what I'm not doing this with I'm doing very light marks. So just practice that. It's almost like you're not putting any weight on the pen itself. It's just sort of, you know, gliding over the paper. And again, I'm just going to leave it there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my orange and some of my browns, and I'm just going to test what the colours look like again on my little sheet here, so I can just, you know, get a real sense of what I'm putting onto paper there. Bearing in mind, the other thing that you want to be doing is building up the layers. I'm just looking for a yellow. Well, that's helpful because the yellow is not in there. Thanks to my children who have taken that one out. So I've got a different one. Right, bear with me, guys. I'm going to just quickly go and get a yellow pencil. I've got loads of yellow colouring pencils, but not in this room. Hang on a second, and you can catch up. Okay, sorry guys. 3 yellow pencils. So this is the Derwent one, if you're just wondering which one I've got there. So I'm just going to start layering up. Now that's not just white, it's a very light orangey colour. So I'm just sort of shading in the direction of hair. And then I'm going to go over what I have done with the orange. You can kind of see that there's lighter and darker areas, and you can just start off very slowly building up these colours. So everything at the moment, a bit like when we do with watercolour, we start off lighter and then we build it up. It's about being confident with the marks that you're making. And obviously all around this area it's much darker, so you can be quite confident about getting in some of this orange. I'm trying to shade each bit into different sections. And oh. So the nice thing about using the felt tip pen with the colouring pencils is that you get these defined marks, which it kind of gives it almost a bit like that printed effect, like a lino print. Taking this sort of light, making sure you've got these lighter tones. That's really important coming through. And just putting a bit of the yellow in there as well. And you've got around his eye, you know, it's very skin-like. I'm just going to rub out those pencil marks that I've got, because I don't really want those in there. And the black. Now, obviously, with the eye, there are areas in there where it's little shapes forming, and that's just a reflection. So it's important to leave some of those blank. Or what I like to do is I've drawn those little shapes in, and I'm just colouring up and around and near them, and then actually just very lightly shading over the top, because it's still light, but it's not necessarily bright white. Another thing that you can do as well is you can always add in, you know, some white gouache at the end, if you wanted to. That's another nice sort of technique to do. It's slightly lighter around here, where he's got his whiskers. And a couple of bits of darker brown. probably looks a bit odd at the moment. Let's just get a little bit of yellow in. And it is completely this combination of colours that brings the squirrel to life. I'm just going to work a little bit harder on that bit just to get that a bit more defined. And that's where, you know, good quality colouring pencils allow you to kind of blend in with those two things together. I'm just using a bit of brown. I'm just going to sharpen this slightly because it's getting a bit blunt. What I love about when I'm drawing the animals and focusing on them in a lot more detail and paying attention to, you know, all these little bits about them is, you know, it's amazing, isn't it, when you start looking at them more closely, and you can kind of understand why Beatrix Potter did what she did, really, and they've all got little personalities. It's just really interesting. So I'm just making those dashes a little bit more defined around the face. And yeah, so just I'm going to put in some kind of little bits of kind of creamy bits on his tummy here, because it's not quite all white. There's like a little white it's kind of like a little white edge around his mouth there, so and we can do the same thing down here. It's quite dark. Again, let's just get this dark around here. And those little wispy bits make a difference as well. I'm just doing exactly the same technique and just keep building and building and working it on it, because that is going to make the difference. I'm just going to use a slightly sort of kind of like pinky skin colour to fill in some of these bits. else do I need? Brown. Let's use some of this brown. And feel free to show movement with the hairs. I'm just going to go over this and press a bit harder in sort of a chunk almost. I'm also just going to do a bit more of that with this brown as well. And I might also add a little bit of yellow in there. So just keep layering it up until you have the desired colour. And just got that off there. I'm just going to use a little bit of black in some of these areas. And what's great is that the felt tip pen almost fades, but gives it that real definition, which, you know, sometimes you just can't always get when you're working with colouring pencils. get this tricky foot done. So there's highlights, so you can start off by just kind of colouring in the whole thing orange, and then you've got darker areas on one side of the foot almost, but also kind of coming up here. So I'm just putting in some extra thicker colour. I'm just going back over and just looking and seeing, you know, is there anywhere that I need to add a little bit darker or get some more definition in there. So I'm not pressing too hard with the black. I'm just really wanting just a little bit of extra shadow and depth. Do let me see how you get on. I'll do the Zoom session. Those of you that are wanting to show me in person online, then that would be great. And yeah, look forward to seeing your pieces. Next week we're going to do the fox in biro, so that would be a really nice sketch with biro. The reason that I'm going to get you to do the fox drawing first rather than straight into watercolor, again, it's just good hand-to-eye coordination, getting us familiar with shapes, and then we'll be ready to do that in watercolor for the last 3 sessions. Make sure you stretch your paper, and if you're unsure of how to do that, let me know and I can post a video on how to do that. Okay, thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care. Bye.